to double check that. Okay, it's
Okay. Hello everybody, my name is Alan Kamisic and today I am presenting the era of modernism. The poem I would like to present to you today is The Garden by Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound was born on October 30th in Haley, Idaho, around 1885, and he died later in 1972 in Venice that November. The poem I like to use is The Garden, and this was originally published in 1913, and it was republished and then finally put into a magazine 3 years later in 1916. Just to give a little insight of what the poem is, I'd like to read it to you right now. Like a skeal of loose silk blown against the wall, she walks by the railing of the path in Kingston Gardens, and she is dying piecemeal of a sort of emotional anemia. And round about there is a rabble of filthy, sturdy, unlikable infants of the very poor. They shall inherit the earth. Into her is the end of breathing. Her boredom is exquisite and excessive. She would like someone to speak to her, and is almost afraid that it will commit indiscretion. Alright, and the characteristics of this poem are that go along with modernism. For one, would be non-stereotypical, and by this it means it goes along the lines of something new. It doesn't go with the rest of how poems used to look and how they used to be written. There's no rhyming, there's no guidelines, and this poem is definitely one of a kind of its era. It's also a free verse poem, and that means that like in old poems as well, it doesn't have to rhyme at the end of every sentence. It's kind of free going or free verse. And then another one is that it consists of individualism opposed to as groups. An individual person in this poem is looking at the outside world and trying to get a understanding of how people act during that time. The meaning behind the poem is that it actually takes place in the Edwardian time period, which is because King Edward was in rule. The characteristics in this poem are based on the English society, and the garden is referred to the Edwardian times because Queen Victoria was originally the queen there, and then England was dark and gloomy, and then when King Edward came in, he kind of brightened the mood and made everything seem a little more lively. Okay, and then the influences of this poem socially are that it's the rebirth of England, as I stated earlier, after Queen Victoria died and her son came to the throne. It also made England brighter, and the gloom seemed to be lifted. Politically, there was heritage, or it was an influence. I'm sorry. Artistically, the way the culture is portrayed from light to dark, which is like say paintings in the time, they seem gloomy and also not as bright as American cultures would seem, and the English encounters are not as bright per se either. There was an article or opera that we did in class that I wanted to bring back to your attention. Since all of you know that The Rite of Springs was a musical opera that involved many different and outgoing strategies, or I should say different styles of, say, ballet. And this was a form of modernism because it didn't go by any other forms of ballet, and it was just one of a kind. And to conclude, The Garden is referring to England, just kind of summing up that when King Edward came into town, he kind of made everything more bright and had a positive outlook on everything. The new style was original. Nobody had thought about doing it until the modernist era to kind of change things up from the original ways. And there was very much enforcement from this in England, from Queen Elizabeth going to, or Queen Victoria, pardon me, to going to King Edward. Thank you very much, and have a good day.